Hi Ben, thanks for joining me today.
Hi Hannah.
So would you just briefly like to introduce yourself, so your name, title and company, and tell us a bit about your professional background?
Sure. My name's Ben Hales. I'm employed as the Director of Components Only. We started our business 6 years ago, so November 2014. We're coming up for our 6-year anniversary as it stands. A bit about myself. I wasn't always in heavy earth moving and mining. I actually started in funds management. So spent the first 13 years of my career working in the funds management industry, starting with the likes of Macquarie Bank, Brookfield Multiplex, so effectively a large Canadian pension fund and construction company, and working with the likes of BT Financial Group. So I initially started on the funds management side in terms of portfolio administration, and then moved through to the sales side, so both what we call retail investors and wholesale investors. And through a strange set of circumstances, as life works, I was presented an opportunity to manage a heavy earth moving rental business by the name of Rhinestone. And we had 300 heavy earth moving machines. And I think really from there, through a tendering process, met a contact at Xstrata Glencore, Dan Fedder. And between Dan and I and a long-term friend and business partner, Adrian Vinicum, we had an idea back in August 2014 to create a marketplace for heavy earth moving components. And given the tech background, particularly with Adrian, it was something that we could turn around quite quickly. So what started as a hypothesis or an idea, we thought we could do something with. And I guess, as they would say, the rest is history.
Fantastic. Quite the story. It's awesome, and great capabilities coming together to do great things. So that's
yes, yeah,
awesome. So what is tell me a bit about your role at Components Only, and a little bit more about what you guys actually do now.
Sure. So I guess focusing on the business firstly, we specialise in the trade of heavy earth moving components. So when people think of large mining machines, they're the components and parts that make up the machine. So we specialise all the way from what we call used component cores, rebuilt cores, to new surplus excess. And effectively, we look to provide timely and cost-effective solutions for our customers. So very much focusing on what I would call the cradle to the grave. So from the point of procurement to the point of supply, ensuring that our customers have the components that they require when they require them. I guess as far as my role is concerned, invariably roles evolve with a company. So we tend to operate a titleless business, but depending upon market, of course, people like to see titles. So I'm one of 3 directors, 3 owners in the business, of which we all own a third in the business. My effective title outwardly is Director of Sales, but very much focused around sales, marketing and operations, and very much around the strategy with growth of the business. I think kind of like a child growing up, the business has attained a life of its own. And for all of us, it's about growing within that and growing with the business and preparing it for its next stages in terms of that growth.
Yeah, fantastic. And so on that note, so what are some of your company's Components Only's goals for growth, so for global and regional growth in the near future?
Yeah, sure. So we've been very fortunate with the people that we have aboard, both in terms of what I call the foundation people who initially started with us, but also the people who have joined us in our journey. So 6 years, while it may seem a reasonable amount of time, has gone very quickly. Where we have focused a lot of our energies is very much around systems and processes to really add the efficiencies of what we do. But more importantly, ensure that it's a consistent approach when customers deal with us. In what that has allowed is consistent, sustainable growth for our business. And I think that's important, not getting too far ahead of oneself. I think you can potentially become a victim of your own success if you push too hard. So we've been very strategic in that growth, both domestically, but with Glenn Clark, who is our global head of sales, the focus of international markets. So our initial 2 international markets that we focused on was South America and Mongolia, of which we have a representative in both of those countries. So we have a staff member in Santiago in Chile, and we also have one in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. So right now, 6 years into the life of our business, 70% of our trade is domestic and 30% of our trade is now international.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic story with expanding that market, and also, as you spoke, setting it up to be able to scale like that's really important. So
I think so. Like, I mean, there's a lot of learnings that come in business, and for us, where we are right now is very much thinking not about FY21, but about FY22 and the infrastructure we require and the capability and capacity to deal with the growth that is in place. So I think it would be fair to say that as the business grows, it becomes clearer what your core competencies are. And so as a business, we kept coming back to the core of what we do for the first 5 years. But by really honing that skill, we have a number of opportunities now that we can diversify into, but we can do that capably with capacity rather than sort of spreading ourselves too thin.
Yeah, scrambling to get it done. Which is a nice place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. And so I know that you have a few new appointments as well in the company. So I think I just mentioned Glenn Clark as the head of global sales, and Jeffrey Chua and Sammy Hammam. Sorry. So do you want to speak to how they kind of are going to assist in some of this global growth?
Yeah, sure. Glenn Clark, our global head of sales, he's now been with us nearly 4 years. Glenn has been instrumental with the global growth. So Glenn's heritage was 10 years at Liebherr, 10 years at Terex, and when he was at Terex, very much setting up the international dealer network. So it takes in my view, it takes a certain skill set and personality to be able to grow global networks across various cultures. So strategically, we have those countries right now that we're looking to grow into. But as the business has continued to grow, I think the personal view of the directors is you can't always solve problems with more heads. So the focus has been around those systems and processes and technology to make for efficiency. But also, I think from a director perspective is when you first start a business, you're invariably jack of all trades, master of none in terms of just getting the job done. But having a very clear structure in terms of the people or in terms of the roles and what people will fulfill in those roles. So recent appointments for our business include a commercial manager. So that was the first step in building out, dare I say, a more senior management team. Being the three directors, Glenn Clark as the global head of sales and Jeffrey Chua as the commercial manager. So Jeffrey's a chartered accountant by trade. He's had CFO roles, and that really provides a foundation for our growth and that financial sophistication. We recently employed Sam Ham. Sam is Egyptian born. He speaks Arabic. He moved out from Qatar 7 months ago. And we were fortunate enough to meet Sam, and he joined us. Culturally very good for our business and very strategic in building that Middle East region for us, which presents many opportunities. We've also recently employed a gentleman by the name of Aaron Pittman. So Aaron is a representative in the Hunter Valley or New South Wales. But Aaron joins the business with specific skill sets in a type of machine that they call rope shovels, as well as large wheel loaders. So for us, there's a concept of building out roles within regions, but also roles with various skill sets. So I think rather than having a group of individuals, it's about building a team of diversified skill sets where we can enable each other in that fulfillment of opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. being able to like identify those needs and then, you know, getting the right people in is, I'm sure, going to lead to great things.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. So yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit? You talked about expansion into kind of markets of opportunity. So I know that there was there's some mining regions that you're looking to target specifically. So Chile being one of them and Mongolia the other. So do you want to tell us a little bit about those regions and how they're an opportunity for components only, and also some potential, you know, ones that you're looking to in the future?
Sure. I think it'd be fair to say that when building a business, it's about fundamentally sticking to your core capabilities, and different regions offer different opportunities, but the best opportunities are where there's similarities in market, be it market conditions or resources or the style and type of equipment and or mining operation that they run. So within South America, for us, very much Chile, Colombia, Peru. But if moving up towards North America, and if I look in particular in Canada, they run very similar mining operations to us. Culturally, they're a Western country. They speak English. There's a lot to like in terms of doing business with a similar country. Mm-hmm. But also, when one considers risks such as foreign exchange, the Canadian dollar is very much on parity with the Australian dollar, so almost like for like. When I look at that Asian region in terms of Mongolia is very strategic for us because you can push up into that Russian region, and of course borders China as well. And Enku for us in Mongolia, he speaks multiple languages, so speaks English, Russian, and Mongolian. And dare I say, speaks better English than we all do. But also, when dealing in those regions, I think it's fundamentally important to understand the custom of trade and how they go about the daily economics of trade, but more importantly, the management of risk and, dare I say, that the security of the transaction from the point of procurement to the point of fulfillment. So having eyes and ears on the ground becomes fundamentally very important for us. Sure. If I look at other regions for us at the moment, Southeast Asia is certainly a growth region for us, and we're currently investing a lot of time and energy in Indonesia, and then subsequent to that with bringing Sam Ham aboard, that Middle East region, so the various countries that make up the Middle East.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Quite the spread.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So are there any mining commodity sectors that you predominantly supply to? What does that kind of look like, your typical market?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, in Australia, the two biggest resources, of course, are coal and iron ore, of which we've got relatively equal exposure to. So iron ore, of course, being in the west, coal being across here in the east. Mm-hmm. And then if I look at countries such as South America, the copper and the gold. And I think for us, the management of risk is as important as management of growth. So albeit the economic conditions and some of the challenges or headwinds that we currently have, there are opportunities in the sector and the regions because they are running at different speeds. So if we'd appreciate what's happening with iron ore at the moment, iron ore is in a particularly strong position. Whereas if we consider across in the east, in particular thermal coal, thermal coal's under a bit of pressure. But then again, if you look at gold and you look at the concern around economic risk and the flight to gold, gold's an extremely good and solid position. So I guess strategically for us, it's about ensuring that we're not held captive to any one client, but also any one resource. Yes. And I think in particular when considering that when considering geography, it's not only geography domestically, but abroad. And those opportunities, when one considers what happens with foreign exchange, but also the markets and the different speeds that they run, there's always opportunities depending upon timing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what about some of the ones, you know, sort of some of the lesser minerals and things that have going to be more needed in the future due to technologies demands and things like that, and renewable energy and electric cars and that type of thing, battery minerals. Is that somewhere that you're looking to kind of get more involved in as well?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think, I mean, clearly, if one looks at the market, and I guess it depends what sector and what angle that people are looking at, there's an argument that certain resources are under greater pressure than others. But I also believe, rightly or wrongly, that there's a commercial reality of what occurs with resources as well. So I guess a key example is when people say coal is bad, and you ask the question, which coal? They can't answer that question. And there's a clear difference between thermal and brown coal and that of metallurgical coal, which is required to make steel.
Yes.
I think it'd be fair to say that there's not one person in this world that doesn't want to become greener, but it's a concept of what green looks like. And the next wave of opportunity certainly resides in what they call the rare earth metals.
Yes.
The challenge for rare earth metals in particular is finding operations that are big enough in terms of scale. So that's not of concern for us. We can cater to all sizes of customers, but in terms of commercialising it, particularly with the big miners, is finding something that they can rationalise in terms of their own balance sheet and scale and making a significant revenue impact. So I do believe that it'd be naive for any business not to consider the opportunity of what it looks like. But I think also the commercial reality is that countries have different views at the moment and they have different demand. So coal, whether we like it or not, I think will be in large supply for the foreseeable future with countries such as India, China, Korea, Japan. And likewise for iron ore and copper. I mean, you know, we're a highly disposable society today, and with that comes the demand for resources. So they say copper is the resource that's required for mature economies. It's about very much having that exposure, but of course, an eye to the sky in terms of what those next market movements could be.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more about the coal aspect as well. Obviously, demand for steel's not going anywhere anytime soon for even in these future markets. So, and
that ability to change. I guess in answering your question, we always have a look at that diversity and what the next stages might be. For us, it's probably considering what those shifts could be in terms of the technology that's used to assist those resources. So if we take a position of being agnostic as far as the resource itself, they require very similar equipment to do the extraction process. And I think what we're seeing in that extraction is that technology is having a significant influence. So the concept of automation and also the machines becoming more environmentally friendly, which quite frankly has been pushed by North America and the US. So with the Environmental Protection Agency and what they call EPA. So for us, it's about making sure that we have the right tools in place to adequately support our customers as they move to that technology.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. And so do you think are the most significant opportunities for growth that you kind of haven't already touched on in the looking to the future for components only?
Sure. I think in many ways when we started, we were a technology business that just happened to be operating in traditional industry. We have a number of entities that have been created that will be focusing on different market sectors. So one of the key businesses that we're bringing to market at the moment is a business by the name of Earth Moving Supplies. So Earth Moving Supplies is targeted towards the civil and construction industry as well as heavy earth moving and mining. And its focus is on earth moving parts and consumables. So a part or a consumable is something that's small as opposed to a component that's large. And there's a large opportunity that exists in terms of the fulfillment of that opportunity, but it's making sure that there's a model in place that can do that adequately for customers in a timely and effective manner. So earth moving supplies is a big focus for us. The other one where we're spending a lot of energy at the moment is around technology in our asset management and customer relationship platform. that trades under the name of Markets Manager. And we're in what we would call pre-commercialization of that. So as the business has grown, it was initially a system that we developed for ourselves, but it's a system that's been created specifically for the heavy earth moving and mining sector. And for us, we currently have that in what we call beta testing with a number of customers in terms of getting feedback in terms of ways that we can refine it, but ensuring that there's no inconsistencies or errors that are occurring with the system. So for us in creating that system, it's creating something that's specifically developed for the heavy earth moving and mining industry, but fundamentally creating what I would call an ecosystem around inventory, be it components or assets. So we're very excited about that. You know, as a business grows, it's that word I would use, which is diversification. And diversification allows a business, one, to generate multiple revenue streams, but more importantly, insulate oneself throughout a market cycle.
Yeah, build up that resilience.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Which we're finding out more and more is a massive asset to have to a business at the moment.
Absolutely.
No, not all eggs in one basket.
Correct.
Yeah. So actually speaking to that, so obviously at the moment when I'm talking to you, there's a minor, hopefully, threat of a second wave of COVID hitting Queensland. So as of yesterday, so I want to talk a bit about that. So due to kind of all of the impacts of COVID, what were some of the opportunities and some of the challenges that you found that affected the business or your customers' businesses?
Yeah, look, I think we've been very fortunate in our country. I mean, despite the second wave and the increase of cases in Victoria, I think in reality we're still very fortunate compared to what's happened worldwide. I think there's a silver lining in every cloud. For us, we were quite fortunate for the fact that when we did start our business, we started from home office as opposed to having facilities now. So when it was put upon us that we had to work remotely, we had good systems and infrastructure to enable that, where I think large corporate Australia was fundamentally challenged in that they thought they had the systems and processes, but to do it en masse became pretty difficult in reality. So the silver lining of all of that is that, rightly or wrongly, I believe that we're going to have to learn to live with coronavirus for the foreseeable future. And I think if there is a large second wave, we are all better able to deal with that from a technological perspective and staff working from home and having those restrictions in place. For our customers, if I look at Australian miners in particular, they've been very competent at managing coronavirus and maintaining their operational capacity. And if we compare it to a country such as Brazil, which perhaps took a different view in the management of coronavirus, a number of those mine sites have been put under significant pressure to the extent that capacity has been wound right back. So for us, and in particular servicing our customers, it's been about being able to better manage the variables that now exist. And those variables, particularly with international trade, relate to supply and freight. So if I look at ocean freight and if I look at air freight, there has been a lot of disruption in that. Pricing for air freight almost changing daily. The concept of not necessarily being able to secure something overnight. And we even saw it with domestic post. So it's being able to better manage that process to ensure that we still get consistent outcomes. And with that, also accounting for the increased costs that are also associated with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I suppose that could be an opportunity for you, given that you do have like kind of that local presence in a lot of these markets, that you're potentially able to better serve them in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there's a whole lot of dynamics that aren't always anticipated. So what we've seen with foreign exchange rate, we got down there for a little while at 57.5 cents. For us, that presented a compelling opportunity to actually sell offshore in terms of increasing our exports. But, you know, I think to the credit of our country and government, the way that we've managed coronavirus is we're actually seeing positive pressure on the Australian dollar, which in many ways is something to celebrate in terms of our own economic credentials, but it's not desirable in terms of business because it makes it more expensive for us to do trade internationally. So it's about taking into consideration those variables and how we can use those variables to maximise the outcomes for our business as well.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. And then just touching on, I know you talked a little bit about some new appointments and sort of having that presence in many markets and that type of thing, but I wanted to find out a bit more about, given that I'm not your direct contact at Ironbark, a bit more about your team culture and what it's like to kind of work with components only.
Yeah, look, thank you. Culture for, I would say culture for us is our number one priority, and it's actually the one thing that we're most proud of. We have a group of people that work extraordinarily well together, and maybe it's like parenting, be it by design or a bit of luck or a bit of both. We've created a culture where there's a significant lack of ego. And the way that we are collectively driven, it's for the greater good. So the analogy I would use is akin to a sporting club. You know, whether it's 11 or 13 or 15 players, it's better to have a team rather than 15 superstars. And we have a very competent team that work well together. And in building our business, we've given very careful consideration to the behaviours that we drive. So even when, if we talk the corporate lingo of key performance indicators, what are the behaviours that we want to encourage with that performance? Is it in the best interest of the customer or the business? And for us, we believe it's about driving the right behaviours for building a long-term business. But likewise, in terms of rewarding team rather than individual. And I think for us, we're quite proud of the fact that we've got a very multicultural workplace. We have a Singaporean, an Egyptian, a Mongolian, a Chilean. We've got old, we've got young, we've got males, we've got females. But more importantly, I think beyond all that, having, for want of a better term, a self-deprecating humour. So not to take ourselves too seriously, and also have some fun along the way. And I think part of that is that there's a lot to be said about empowerment and fulfillment. And for us, it's about ensuring our staff, which includes the directors, our staff are fulfilled. But more importantly, we value everyone's opinion, and that's not to be understated. So quite often we find that there's no bad ideas, there's always good ideas, but a good idea can become great when it's shared. So someone can have that ideation and they can put an idea forward, and invariably with the input or two or three of the other team members, we take something that's good and fundamentally make it great. And there's a lot to be said with that. If I was to write my own ticket, I'd like to think that at the end of 5 or 10 years, we can turn around and look at each other and say, haven't we done something great? And give each other a pat on the back and celebrate that success. Yeah,
fantastic. And also, I guess, building that culture, it says a lot to your company that your Components Only is set up a kind of environment where people aren't afraid to put forward, different ideas or, be part of the conversation. So that, speaks volumes about, what it's like to work with you.
Well, it does. I think, most of us have all worked for big corporates, and for good and for bad. And the biggest challenge is it's one thing saying you do something, but it's another whether it actually occurs. And for us, I actually believe, and like raising children, that it's okay to make mistakes. And mistakes are what actually teach the lessons and build the knowledge within an organisation. So it's something to be encouraged. And if I use an analogy of a rate card, we don't want to stipulate what someone should do. We believe that they should make the decision in what's in the best interest for the customer and what's in the best interest for the business. So if that means a short-term strategic decision for a long-term outcome, it's important for an employee to understand that, one, that they have our support, and two, that they also have the permission to make mistakes.
They don't have that fear of, getting it wrong or not being on side with certain individuals in the company, which is, really important.
Correct. Politics and bureaucracy, that's the poison that kills any business. And I think as the business continues to grow, that's something that we're going to have to, I'd be naive to think that it's not something we're going to have to contend with at some stage, but it's about putting in place that foundation to hopefully avoid it as best we can.
Absolutely. And as you said, encouraging the right type of behaviours that you want to see.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. So finally, Ben, sorry, I've taken a bit of your time, but this is the final question, I promise. So where do you see Components Only in the next 5 years or in 5 years' time?
Well, we're 6 years in, and that's gone really quickly. And it's like an interview, I guess. It's like, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I mean, that's really a big open-ended question. I think what characterises our business, and one of our directors, I think, coined it brilliantly, is that when asked the question of the directors and what our commitment was to each other, but also the growth of the business, our pursuit has not been financial. And the brilliant thing about that, and I think where Adrian got it perfectly, is we're really interested to see what we can become. So that doesn't necessitate a certain size or success, but we do have some relatively lofty aspirations for ourselves. And part of that is taking the people with us on that journey as well. So I expect what people will see of us is a continued maturity of the brand, which is Components Only, but start to see far greater offerings from our business in the brands that I've discussed earlier with Earth Moving Supplies and Markets Manager. And part of that is taking that long-term strategic growth in regions and in sectors, but not getting beyond ourselves either. So almost like a snowball effect, just making sure that we've got the capacity and capability in place and the infrastructure, and just building that at a sustainable rate over the long term.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of myself and the Ironbark team, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to join me today and to chat.
Thank you.
And we look forward to, kind of continue working with you into the future and being part of your success story. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's all about partnerships. So we appreciate the opportunity to have a talk with you today. And of course, the service that you've provided us, and I think our partnership's now been about 2 years.
Yes.
So, and partnership is everything. So it's something that we very much appreciate. And I thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ben.
Excellent. Thank you.